It's Tuesday, July 2nd, 2013.
Oh, yeah.
We got it this time. Live from rural Pickens, South Carolina, Techology Studios. Hello, friends. I'm Matthew T.G.
Live from the DeLorean, I'm Heath Mullican.
And I'm Tony Casey. Welcome to the Techology Show, a weekly podcast featuring technology, theology, and everything in between. This is episode 209. And guess who's back in studio? Brother Heath.
Guess who's back?
Wearing a Pac-10 shirt.
That's right. That's right.
Man, what? Oh.
Straight from the Portland International Airport. Hey, speaking of which, I was gone last week. You guys had the great giveaway. That once again, we want to thank Zondervan, the Theologian trading cards. However, we gave away 3 sets of these 7 sheets. Kudos to you. You've already claimed yours. But we want to send a SOS out to Mary Williamson and Troy Wilson. We're trying to get your contact information. You entered through Facebook.
Private profile.
Private profile.
Can't message you.
We can't send you a message.
I put your name on our website. We're shouting it out again in the podcast.
So we need
you.
You. I know that they're both aliases of Seth Cotton, but we need you to contact us. And we want, because we want to send you. Zondervan wants to send you these theologian trading cards, which, I mean, if you're standing in the line of the DMV, whip those out of your pocket, study up. It's real good.
Give it a couple more weeks, I guess. If we don't hear from them, do we move on and pick 2 more winners?
I think that's my feeling.
Yeah. Okay, so let's give another 2 weeks.
So you have a toy with you today.
Yeah, so like every once in a while we like to bring in toys. I'm going to pass this over to you so you can show it off on the camera.
What is?
There we go. So this is
a little black box.
This is a little Bluetooth speaker, and it is really cool. So it's wireless, so show that there's no wires front or back, and it actually, I mean, it puts out a pretty good sound. I'm actually going to play something out of it right now, I think.
No way. That sound's coming from that little thing.
Pass it over there to Heath. Let him feel it a little bit. It's fantastic. So like this deal could go.
Good night.
The bass on that is pretty impressive.
That's pretty impressive. Oh, I don't want to shake it.
Especially
is that today's
cool
giveaway?
To me, like in areas where I don't have a power outlet and it's hard to get a set of speakers. For example, in our bathroom, I love to as I'm like taking a shower, getting ready for the day, I like to listen to a podcast or something like that while I'm in there. And there's nowhere to get a speaker over next to the shower, and so it's really hard to hear in there. That thing I can set right outside of the shower. Very, very cool little device. I'm going to turn off my music now.
Yeah, very impressive.
So
Matthew said that to me.
That's pretty nice.
I got that at about it's about $100 speaker, but I got it for $60. I found a deal on it and decided to pull the trigger. But very cool.
So can you swing the same deal for us?
Well, I could have 2 weeks ago.
That's really nice. I just have the one. Matter of fact, we're getting ready for kids camp, and so you'll have this really cool thing, and I'll have the old school boom box that you got to plug your iPod into, and it's all wired. And the kids are all gonna not respect me now because they'll know what you have.
Well, they don't respect you anyway. All right, let's talk about our guest for this week. We want to welcome to the show Paul Tillman. Paul serves as lead pastor at Oakdale Wesleyan Church of Oakdale, Minnesota, a tactical leader with a passion to see individuals in the church corporate conformed to the image of Christ. He expresses this passion primarily in the areas of spiritual formation, administration, preaching, and multi-ethnic ministry. Paul's earned a BA in Biblical Studies from Grace School of Theology and Ministry, a BA in Humanities and Religious Studies from California State University, Sacramento, and a Master of Divinity from Wesley Seminary at Indiana Wesleyan University, and he's also an ordained minister in the Wesleyan Church. Paul married his wife Jennifer in 2004, and together they have 1 daughter. Although comfortable in his own skin, Paul has been blessed to live in a multicultural community, growing up in the San Francisco Bay Area, where he was a youth pastor, later serving in Sacramento metro area, and now in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Paul, welcome to the show.
Hello. Good to be here.
Yeah, so, I mean, like last week, Matthew dissed you and said that the reason you're on the show is because you just kept hounding us.
Yeah, and it finally paid off.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're our one groupie, Paul. Oh, listen, let's begin our talk with you today about talking about Wesley Seminary. You were part of the first cohort there, so give our listeners a sense of how that was all new and what it was like just going through that program as the initial group.
Okay. First, let me say, any of the commercials you see for Wesley Seminary, it's all true as far as how good it is. But as part of the first cohort, my experience wasn't entirely typical. The first day of class for our first intensive, our dean, Dr. Ken Skank, came in and he said, "We've built the airplane. You're sitting on the airplane. We're in the air. We're still building the airplane." And that was literally true. As we went through the 3 years, there were times in classes where they were still writing curriculum as we were in the class.
Yeah.
Just they might have just sometimes as short as a week ahead of us. So that part was sometimes tough, but to me, it was an honor to be part of the very first cohort of Wesley Seminary, and it also gave us a chance to give more feedback as they built the program to see what would work and what wouldn't work and things like that.
We have another name for that. I believe it's called guinea pig.
Yeah, guinea pigs, definitely.
Hey, let me just ask you real quick, Paul. A lot of people may recognize you because as a member of that first cohort, you literally were one of the poster guys for the seminary. I mean, as I've been traveling, people are tweeting pictures. They're going to district conference, and your picture's on the Wesley Seminary display. What's that been like to not only be a part of it, but man,
it's it started off. It was kind of neat to see my picture up everywhere. It became a joke. The first. Let's see. No, it was probably the second summer we were out there. There was a big poster of me right in front of the cafeteria. And at the summer, there's not usually a lot of people there, but there was a few tours going around where they were showing prospective students the campus. And so a few of us were going to lunch, and there was this tour coming around. So I ran up ahead, and I leaned against this pole that was right next to my big Everybody got a big kick out of that. So.
We know that Wesley Seminary emphasizes the integration of practice and learning. So from your vantage point as a student, what did that look like?
Well, from my perspective, you're talking to a guy that I actually did not want to go to seminary and get an MDiv. I had intended to get my master's degree, but I wanted to get something practical. I looked at counseling. I was looking at sociology, cultural studies. I wanted something I could use. And so when I saw what the program was at Wesley Seminary, I knew that was the MDiv for me. Every assignment is tailored to make a plan that you could put into action in your local church. So you can tailor just about everything to your context, including we had solo pastors, we had assistant pastors. That's what I was at the time. We had missionaries in my cohort. We had chaplains in our cohort. It was probably the toughest for the chaplains because they hadn't quite tailored it for them yet. Okay. But to be able to put stuff together that I could use in my church right now. Sorry, that's my phone. That was good.
Yeah, Paul, in terms of the practical aspects of this, I mean, I would imagine that there were some, huge takeaways for you. What were some of the big takeaways from Wesley Seminary?
Probably for me. Sorry, I've got a. Of course, somebody's going to call right when I on TV. So for me, the whole program is integrated, and by that, they don't separate our personal spiritual formation from our study of church history, from our study of preaching, from our study of theology. And so I don't feel like I just took a church history class. I can use that as I delve into other areas. And so one of the big takeaways for me was I feel like my spiritual life is now more integrated. I kind of grew up when I was a youth pastor. I was told, okay, you need to have your own personal quiet time, and that's separate from your lesson preparation time and your prayer time is separate from when you're praying for your kids in youth group. Everything was very compartmentalized.
Yeah.
And honestly, there's not enough hours in the day for me to be that compartmentalized with stuff. And I would actually feel guilty when I would teach from my devotional time. Something God had showed me. And now all that's together. If Dr. Lucetti says, if I'm not getting spiritual formation from my sermon prep, I'm not doing it right.
Very good.
So all that works together, and it's not that I don't do stuff on my own, but I don't feel guilty about it coming around later, and using it as part of ministry as well. So
that's interesting, because I remember being told those same compartmentalized things.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's kind of nice to know that there's
in a theological education too. I mean, oftentimes the Theological Institute has been guilty of just siloing things, and so you go to the languages class, and what is presented to you is it's all about the languages, and if you get the languages, then you're going to be the effective pastor. Then you go into the pastoral care and counseling class, and it's about the counseling. And then you go to the preaching class, and then you go to the next class. And it's almost like the disciplines don't talk to one another.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one, we would have a, not in every class, but most of the time, the ideal setup was to have a main teaching professor for, say, preaching, and then you would have one or two other professors that also were a part of that class. One that was church history and one that was theology. So everything was integrated in our core courses like that. So,
yeah.
Paul, you were recently featured in Indiana Wesleyan University's alumni or their official magazine, The Triangle. In that article, you say that Oakdale Wesleyan Church, your current church, is your dream church. Why? What made you say that?
There's probably several points I could go into on that. As I was looking for where God would be sending my wife and I next, I was encouraged to make a list of and pray over, God, if you would give me my dream, it would have all these things in it. But the one of the things that was most important was I have a multi-ethnic family. I'm black, my wife is white, and so our daughter's halfway in between. And just stuff I had read was that as parents, we would have to be intentional about exposing her to both cultures so that she would be able to freely move between cultures and not feel trapped in one or the other. So I wanted to go to a church and a geography where it was either already multi-ethnic or had the potential and desire to grow into that. Yeah. And that was something that we had at Oakdale. It was funny. I wanted a church with African Americans in it, and Oakdale Wesleyan has real African Americans, as in from Africa. So God said, well, you wanted African Americans, here's some Africans. So
that's great.
Listen, yesterday you and we talked a little bit and briefly talked about a mutual admiration for Michael Emerson and Christian Smith's book, Divided by Faith. What is it that you liked about that book that kind of, when I mentioned it, you at least remembered it?
Yeah. I learned a lot from this book, and one of the things that we learned the same was just our cultural biases that we're not aware of, and the social structures that sometimes keep people trapped in a certain socioeconomic level.
Right. Yeah.
I wasn't even aware of those, even though I'm supposedly from this African American culture, because one of the things that Emerson doesn't bring out in the book necessarily is 150 years ago when blacks were coming out of slavery, there were two tracks that kind of diverged. Even though education and improving our place in society was important for everybody. Not everyone was able to do that.
Yeah.
Some people just stayed sharecroppers, and some people got an education, and it was important. The children were going to go to college, and you were either going to become a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, an engineer, or clergy. That was the things you were going to do, and not everyone was able to achieve that. And so, for me, growing up, my parents came out of the civil rights movement. We were still at that same two branching points, and it was the same thing.
Yeah.
You're going to go to college, and so I grew up with this idea of, well, if you get an education, you can pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and you can get ahead.
Right.
And even though I experienced racism, I didn't realize that some people didn't have boots to pull themselves up by their bootstraps.
Yeah.
So
and when you said that in the pre-show, you and I talked, and you said that I've never heard it put that way, and I thought you did a masterful job just using that particular phrase. And again, in the pre-show, I talked about my own experience in the church, and we live 2 hours from Chicago, and the fact of the matter was that this idea of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, there are communities and areas of Chicago where the analogy that you give is absolutely right. They don't have any boots to pull up. In other words, if something is going to happen, there have to be forces that redemptively reach in. And I think that with Emerson and Smith's book, so part of this is just a commercial for that book for pastors to read it and people in ministry to read it. Their theory, I think, is very valuable because often in the church, especially with white evangelicals, it's a matter that we don't know what we don't know.
Yep.
And we don't understand this idea that there may be social structures that keep people down. And I think another reason I was attracted to this book is I think that when you read Wesley, and I'm certainly no Wesley scholar, but when you begin to understand the culture that he is ministering to, that Wesley understood that there were structures within the culture that were going to have to change. So for Wesley, it's not just a matter of preaching the gospel to coal miners. It is then turning around and lobbying Parliament that certain laws be changed. And one of those is like the Gin Act, where you have this alcohol that's laced with cocaine and it's readily available to the people. And it's like, listen, you are killing the poor of London. And there are some structures that have to change. And I think that's the beauty of that book.
Yes.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, Paul, we were talking about the length of sermons and the diversity of congregation one somebody's trying to reach. And you sent us an email, and this is something you said in your email. If the message is spirit-led, thought out, and practiced, length is irrelevant. Since January, I've been slowly extending the length of our service from 1 hour to 1 hour 15 minutes, in part so that I can have a consistent 30 minutes to preach, while at the same time adding more songs and ritual. I've heard nothing but positive comments. We've had special services that went almost 2 hours. Everyone thought they were great and were engaged the whole time. It's like in college. A boring professor can lecture for 15 minutes and it seems like 3 hours, while a good professor can lecture for 3 hours and it seems like 5 minutes. Yeah. Talk about the process you went through, especially going into a new church, because one thing they tell you is you don't want to change too much in your first year. And I merged 2 churches and changed the name in the first year and don't necessarily recommend that. But just kind of talk about the process of bringing your own, because I think as a pastor, we bring our own personal preaching style, our own worship style. How have you integrated yourself into Oakdale?
Okay. I did have the luxury of Oakdale went for half a year without a pastor, plus the 6 months before that they were actively searching for a pastor as the old pastor was transitioning out. So when I came in, I didn't want to come in and just rock the boat. I had to actually pull from people and interview, hey, what was going on here? What were you doing? Because I don't want to just say, well, this is how I do it and everything's different.
Yeah.
So it took me time just to figure out what was normal and then to start tweaking, well, I want to add this. And I made it clear, at least to the LBA from the start, that I wanted, multi-generational, and multi-ethnic. You know, we have everybody from senior citizens to little kids in service and diversity, and we also wanted ancient future worship. There are, we sing Charles Wesley and we sing Chris Tomlin. We might say a prayer by St. Patrick or make something up on the spot. So I needed to have. One thing I didn't want to be ruled by was the clock. If at some point we get 2 services, back to back, then I'm going to have to be more ruled by the clock. But so I started introducing, new pieces here and there to see what worked until we got a good order of service. The special services that we did, those were good kind of testing grounds to see how it would go if we went for an hour and 45 minutes and what was the response from the people. And as long as the overall service was connected, not just a series. We're not throwing in ritual just to do ritual. It's there was purpose behind it. It was all connected to. We have one theme for the whole service, and everything has to fit into that. I don't always make it. I don't always get all the pieces in that I want. But if we don't waste time and everything fits together, we can go longer, and everybody doesn't feel like we wasted their time or got bored at any point.
Very good. Yeah.
And as far as the sermon, that's really on me. I in my preaching class, my term paper was on how long should a sermon be, and just found such a range of from 9 minutes to an hour, that just happens in churches. And what I found is it's really you have to know your context and know your own preaching ability. I know I can preach for 30 minutes and not lose people if I've had time to really go over my stuff and my delivery and everything like that. But I don't preach 30 minutes every time. Sometimes I just do 20. So it's knowing your material, knowing the context, knowing the overall, it's architecting the whole service. So
I think it's a complete myth to say that you have to be under 20 minutes. I really do. And I had a conversation with some people coming into our church who had the opportunity before they became connected with us to be at a church that was very much the from the attractional style, I guess would be the best way to put it. Said we sang and we sang and we sang, and the pastor got up and talked for about 5-10 minutes, and we left. And I thought, did I just come to a concert? You know what just happened? And these aren't people who are like established in the church. This is new believers too. So it's a false notion to say that. But I think you're right on there. If you're keeping things within this theme and this idea and it's flowing through, absolutely, it makes sense to people and does that. And I think.
Yeah, and I think your analogy, Paul, when you sent that email, the thing that jumped out at me is, especially those of us that have been in school, where you say you have some professors where 5 minutes seems like an eternity, and 3 hours seems like 5 minutes. Yeah, and it
Would
all
you like
has
some
to,
names? I can. We can just make a list.
Paul's going to start the list.
RateMyProfessor.com.
And if we do that list, then we'll all end up on a list. It's called the blacklist. Now, let me ask you this, Paul, because my first church I worked in full time was a very traditional church, and I remember the fear, even though I had been preaching at that point for 5 or 6 years because I got opportunities when I was a teen. But I was scared. I wanted to fill enough time to get us to noon because in the traditional church, a lot of times we would be done with the worship and the offering, everything, by about 11:15. And so there were a lot of times when I preached. I remember one time in particular, I was the most popular guy in Pickens County. We got out of church at 11:40. And I felt like I had preached and said what I needed to say. It's just that I got up there at like 11:15. So I preached for, I can't do the math on that off the top. I preached for 20, 25 minutes, but it's still, I thought I preached a good sermon. And people were like, 11:40, man. They were happy. So I've been on the other side of that where I'm just trying to get us to 12 o'clock, But now I'm on the other side of that, where our worship is a little longer. Now, let me ask you this: for if somebody's listening to this, and maybe they're curious, when you say the word ritual, what are some elements that you're talking about with that word?
Okay, it could be the sacrament.
Right.
When we do the Lord's table once a month.
Good.
Every time, it's not an add-on to the service.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, I hear you.
It is integrated in. Even though I might be preaching through the book right now, I'm going through 1 Thessalonians. I am going to make sure that at some point we're going to talk about the Lord's table. Feed into something about that can relate to to Christ and His sacrifice. And then it could be, like I said, sometimes we will do, old prayers. If it relates, we said St. Patrick's breastplate together as a prayer, or the Lord's Prayer. Those type of things. That's what I call the ancient part. We read Scripture every Sunday,
right.
From the lectionary.
Yeah.
I choose my text from there. So those types of things are the ritual aspect, by my definition.
So I'm curious, just your own personal opinions here. There are some churches that are just really strict that the kids are just never going to be in the service. So how do you react to that?
Part of it is springing from my time as a youth pastor. Whenever I got to preach, I made sure I was relevant to the teenagers as well as the adults. We had children's church at that time, so the really little kids were gone. At my last church, when it got to the sermon time, high schoolers, down to little kids, they all left for individual things. And I would tell the youth pastor, hey, anytime I preach, you can leave the kids in if you want to, because I'm going to be speaking to everybody. When we got to Oakdale, it wasn't a decision I made. That's just the way the church was working.
Okay.
We don't have the number of people to have a separate children's church right now. So everybody has to be in.
Right.
And so, Jesus taught to everybody. So I wanted to be intentional about being able, everybody that is old enough to understand what I'm saying to be engaged. And so I use illustrations from history or from my life or from Spider-Man. It could be the gamut.
I don't know. Forgive me because my memory is just really foggy on this now. But about 2 years ago, we covered a story. There was some big article that seemed to suggest that some of the research that's been done was like the 50th anniversary of youth ministry really being pushed hard in the evangelical church, and it was again generally about that. But what it was saying is that we may have made a mistake in terms of segmenting children, youth, adults all the time, and that the church was beginning to suffer because there wasn't integration of the generations.
We weren't training kids in what it looked like. So it was a very jarring transition to come out of children's church or whatever the youth were doing and get involved in what that is without. I remember.
Yeah, I remember that. I feel like if I get to a point in Oakdale where I can hire a youth guy, I'm actually going to hire a family pastor.
Right.
When I look on my time as youth pastor in the 90s, the now adults that are still strong with the Lord are the ones that I was able to minister to the whole family, and I was as involved with their parents as I was with their teens.
Sure.
The ones that it was just the teenager, so a lot of them have just dropped off the map. So
and I want to be clear here. This isn't like scolding youth ministry, children's ministry. When we had
No.
Dr. Melinda Denton on, she said that there are creative ways to bring the generations together.
Yeah. And at the same time, and I'm not saying we don't segment. After church, we have our life groups, which is essentially our Sunday school, and we do break it up by generation there.
Absolutely.
So people can get learning and talk with their peers. So it doesn't have to be one or the other. We can do both.
One thing, you talked about integrating things. One thing I found is that if a church does have children's church and you send the kids out, well, then most churches also wait till the end to do baptisms or the Lord's Supper. And so what we've tried to do, we've done the Lord's Supper. We do our baptisms in the middle of our service before we send the kids out. Like, we want them to see that we do the Lord's Supper. We do it during worship, but then we also do a monthly finger foods, and we do the Lord's Supper for that too. Where we're just as part of the meal, we pass the bread and the juice.
Yeah,
and
that's one of my favorite things as a pastor is when you get to have communion and you got families and they're bringing their kids and they're walking with their kids. It is so much fun to see mom and dad get involved with that, and I love it. Our church has been pretty cool because we've done communion a lot differently than what they're accustomed to. So, well, Paul, thank you so much for being on with us today.
Absolutely.
Tell our listeners where they can find you on the internet, where they can follow you on Twitter and Facebook and all that.
Okay. The one-stop shop is my blog, which is ingodsway.org. From there, they can find me on Twitter, or I'm on Facebook too, PV Tillman. So,
hey, and let me just say this before we let you go. If you're listening to this, Paul has one, and I'm not just talking about Wesleyan blogs. He has one of the best blogs on spiritual formation that I have personally found. Like, just getting ready for today, I was reading some of your articles, and just some of the stuff you talk about, Paul. It is really, really good stuff. Really appreciate your perspective on things, and man, we're sure praying for you, love partnering with you, and we're excited to hear how God uses you at Oakdale. So God bless you, brother.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the high praise for the blog. Hopefully, I have more time to write. Now that I'm a lead pastor, I find I have less.
I hear you. Yeah.
Well, next time we have you on, we want to spend a segment on your sword collection. So we'll do that.
That's what I was going to ask.
I've got some of them back there.
Yeah.
Oh man.
All right, man. Blessings on you, Paul.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, great guy. So now I'll just confess I haven't been to his website or the blog. So
Yeah,
pretty good, huh?
he's been blogging for several years, and probably about 4 or 5 months ago helped him move his stuff over to WordPress. And so when you build somebody's blog, so it's just really good stuff.
Okay.
Inside
track.
Like, I didn't know this. He wrote an article on ordination and kind of how it's a sacrament, but I didn't realize. And this is because I haven't known Paul that long. We're in a coaching network together, so we're building that relationship. But he comes from a long line of Wesleyan ministers.
Okay.
His wife is also ordained, and it's just a really cool. He's just a really cool guy, man. Really.
Yeah, well,
really
check
like
out his
him a lot.
blog. Yeah, we want to encourage you to do that. All right, let's look at Skype there. Well, that's great. Hey, let's move on to
Download of the Week.
Yay! All right, here. So we're gonna try to mirror the screen here. Our download of the week is Duolingo. Now I was asking you how we should pronounce this. Duolingo.
Well, here's the deal. It does more than tell them what it is, but it does. It's a language learning app.
It is
absolutely free. It's on every platform. It's online, but they offer Spanish, German.
Yeah, I don't remember what else they offer outside of that.
So it is a really cool. It's what I liked about it is I went through the first level. Yeah. But it's like a game.
Yeah.
And when I get home today, I'm going to put my kids on it because that's one of our goals is to learn Spanish together.
So I already told you I think that's the value of this. So here it's on the iPhone.
Yeah. Show them what to do.
So you tap here. You're at lesson 1.
Yeah.
And again, like Heath said, it's like a game. And so what they want you to do is select the man.
Yeah.
Well, that is this here.
El hombre.
When you do it, it pronounces it.
El hombre.
Try it again.
El hombre.
Yeah. And so it's going to run you through a series of cards, And by the time you get to a lesson, it's going to try to get you to do a phrase.
So
Yeah,
continue on here. Check.
Yeah.
Were you correct?
So what you're doing is it's visual learning,
Right.
because you're seeing the man, you're seeing el hombre, you're seeing a picture of a man, and you're also hearing it. So it's all the sensory learning.
So
I want to win. So let's keep
El
on.
hombre.
So check and see if you're
Yes.
right. Yes, you are
Good.
correct.
Now next one.
And so you can see at the top your status bar until you got 4 hearts, so you got 4 lives, because it's like a game.
now
I
we
love
have-
La mujer.
El mujer, la mujer.
I can't even say
La
it.
All right.
mujer.
All right.
See,
check.
Yes.
Yes,
All right.
I'm
Keep
correct.
on,
Tony, the
Don't
faster
stop now.
you go, the
La
more
mujer.
points you get. So.
Masculine and feminine nouns. Ooh.
Yeah, so it tells you. Yeah, got it. You got
Yeah,
that.
I got it. You should be doing this.
All right. So keep on going.
So you want to
Translate
tap on
this to
the
English.
and woman.
The and woman. I don't even see the.
Is that
Oh,
the
come on,
bottom?
Tony.
I'm
The
looking. Come on,
woman.
guys.
And
Check.
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 Yeah.
You are correct.
You are correct,
The
sir.
boy.
The boy. So
El
you would
niño.
find the
El
picture of the...
Niño.
I am El Nino,
Check.
which is Spanish for
The Nino.
All right, there. You have an idea.
Hey, take us to the end, dude.
La
We gotta get all the way
Niña.
thuu this. You're almost there. Come on, Tony.
Yeah.
Come on, don't stop.
Guys.
Go.
All right,
the girl.
all right,
Go.
all right. Well, listen. Now it's. Oh, hold on. Now I need the girl.
La niña.
All right.
Check it.
Check it. Yes.
El niño.
Okay. El Nino. The
The
boy.
boy.
So this is a review. Good.
Yes,
Love it. Okay.
check
Yeah, it repeats it
Yes,
all. And
yes,
Okay.
continue.
now you're
Una
going to do
niña.
man and woman.
It's
Oh.
a new word.
Oh.
Ooh,
Una.
una. Ooh.
Una.
tap-
So now you have to
Yes.
type it out.
Oh.
Una niña.
Okay, that's
What
where
does
we
that
stop the game. Now, we're done.
A girl.
Una.
All right. I'm done.
You
Sorry.
give up so
That's
easy.
yeah, because
This
you're
is
gonna
like
have to use
Donkey
your
Kong
lives.
all over
we're-
again.
Yeah, it is. We're one third of the way through the green line, guys.
Oh,
I'm just
man.
saying, I beat level 1 in about 5 minutes. So
And I believe
You're
you.
professional. Hey, look who's here.
hey.
Hey.
So anyway, Duolingo, the Google, the Android store, the Apple App Store, online. I mean, I have only gone through one of the lessons.
When you're
and it
fluent in Spanish. It's
was-
amazing.
Sí,
Yeah, give us something
mi
there.
español es muy bien.
With an Italian accent.
With an Italian accent.
Forget about it.
That's beautiful, man. Forget about it. All right. Hey, we want to welcome back to the show Jeremy. So, Jeremy, our big apologies for last week. We had a little trouble with our connection there and
They blamed me.
in studio stuff. Yeah, we're gonna.
We did, but it was our fault, not Jeremy's. But he's
Yeah.
back for round 2. So
All right, so let's move on to the download. I mean, not the download, but they said it. Sorry.
Read my lips.
I'm going to say this again.
I've never taken steroids or HGH.
I took the initiative in creating the internet.
The Macintosh, of all the machines I've ever seen, is the only one that meets that standard.
I'm not a crook.
If you know what you're doing here, slide out.
In my estimation, there's not been in American history a more important leak than Edward Snowden's release of NSA material, and that definitely includes the Pentagon Papers 40 years ago. Snowden's whistleblowing gives us the possibility to roll back a key part of what has amounted to an executive coup against the U.S. Constitution. Daniel Ellsberg, whose leak of the so-called Pentagon Papers to the New York Times in 1971 exposed the secret history of the war in Vietnam. Source Yahoo News.
Many are quick to label a person who strays from his or her marriage or relationship as, quote, cheater. But it's really not that simple. It's time for our culture to wake up and smell the sex pheromones. Monogamy's not natural for many, or probably even most, humans. Megan Laslucky, author of The Little Book of Heartbreak, Love Gone Wrong Through the Ages, and the author of an opinion piece for CNN entitled, Face It, Monogamy's Unnatural. Source, CNN.
You can't toss a stone without hitting a 7-inch tablet nowadays, so Huawei's just announced the MediaPad 7 Vogue with a not-too-common feature, voice calling. If you don't mind a large object plastered to your head, the 3G version of the Slate, there's also a Wi-Fi only model, will let you place network calls. Steve Dent, tech writer and gadget enthusiast, Source and Gadget.
This is a watershed moment for transgender civil rights. We've said from the start that Coy deserves the same respect, dignity, and opportunity that every other student deserves. Michael Silverman, lawyer for 6-year-old Coy Mathis, who won the right to use the girls' bathroom at the public school because he is a transgender female. Source, Yahoo News.
All right, here, guys. So
There's
let's
just so much.
Where's the start?
Yeah, that's right. Let's just jump at the top here. The Snowden story. I wonder how many people understand, what's going on with this, and what we have come to know through the NSA. So one of the big things is this: that you have the government they're just collecting data and they're stockpiling it. Okay.
Yeah.
And so maybe Tony Casey does something wrong one day, and so
now you can go back to that database.
Exactly. They go to a judge and they say, "Hey, we have a subpoena. We want to go to the database and collect everything on Tony Casey, or have permission to go through that." So they're not going through it; they're simply saving.
Yeah, allegedly. I mean,
Yeah.
you gotta have trust that
Right.
the people that it's hard to trust aren't doing something they're not supposed to be doing.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so, and the reason we know this now is because Snowden, who was hired by the government, has made all of this public.
So, Snowden, hero or villain?
That's the question. This
is kind of the same deal with that's going on with Bradley Manning. I mean, this is all, people who leak information. Like you said, hero or villain. I mean, technically, he's obviously breaking the law, but then, I mean, are there some things that we would be better off not knowing?
So I
probably so.
I heard it described this way just yesterday, and I'm curious about it. Like everybody, we've all for a long time, we've all kind of thought, this might be going on. This is going on. And now all of a sudden it's going on, and we say, "Whoa! This is going on. This is and we get it's like
it's like a Jeremy there, yeah.
Totally with you. So I watched the movie Enemy of the State. What was that? 15 years ago.
Yeah,
they were doing it then.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't new. We've all kind of known, but now that we know that we know. Like we were often better off in our ignorance. Oftentimes in life, we're better off in our own ignorance.
Yeah.
Okay, so I find myself sympathetic with Snowden, and I think that he has given us some information that we need, and it is disturbing. And for many of us who lived through 9/11, as traumatic as that was, let's not fool ourselves. This has all come as a result of the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
These things have been. And there is a fine line between the protection of the country and the violation of individual rights. And I think that, and another disturbing thing is if the government's run into encrypted stuff, if it's encrypted, they automatically save it. And so I heard Leo Laporte last week say, I've always encrypted everything. He said, so now it's really comforting to know that my stuff automatically gets red flagged and put into a vault,
Yeah, and the hope is, like with any encryption, that one day there's going to be the processing power to decrypt. And it's always the case. It's an escalating arms race when it comes to things like that. Like, okay, so I can encrypt this, but then you can build a better computer with the more processing power and capability to decrypt it. Well, build another form of encryption and then decrypting. Yeah, it's
right.
I don't think we are fully aware of this new information age that we're in. I use Gmail, which means everybody knows everything about me. Because Google just hands it over or whatever.
Oh, come on. You're so cynical.
But my spam inbox is completely full. Because even though you sign up for like an email newsletter, we would never sell your email to another company. People make millions of dollars every year collecting emails, selling them to companies.
Yeah, I heard you groan there, Jeremy. So you're not buying it?
No, they never ever sell your email. No.
I just assume if you have to tell me you're not going to sell my email, because legally everybody has to tell, but there's no way. let's say the Techology Show, we started an email list and we did sell them. How are you going to find out that we sold them? I don't know. But to me, it's just a very tangled web. And to me, it's the end of a lot of privacy. And a lot of that is we've brought on ourselves, because how many people live their life on Facebook and they have no secrets?
That's exactly right.
I mean, they have no secrets anymore.
So there's a couple things that are interesting here with it. Again, this isn't like all of a sudden, oh my goodness, here it is. We've been living this for the past not just 10 years.
Yeah.
Let's go before 9/11. And
when was Enemy of the State produced? I mean, they assumed it.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm not saying that movie is historically accurate 100% or whatever, but it's based in things that were going on. This isn't just 9/11. Anything like when it's law enforcement, what is law enforcement? They want to know what's going on, and you're going to collect. And it's this weird double-edged thing where we want to be protected, but we're not exactly sure how that ought to play out, how it should play out. And I don't think that I have the answer for it. But I mean, like, am I worried personally? No. I mean, security through obscurity, I guess. Like,
It's good point. Am I worried personally? No. Do I feel like this is a violation? Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of discomfort to think that this stuff could be stockpiled somewhere.
Well,
bad things are going to happen, guys.
Yeah.
We live in a world that's a fallen place. Bad things are going to happen. And yes, you can thwart bad things from happening, but bad things are still going to happen.
Yeah.
People are still going to die. And I mean, I hate to put it out there, but it's a fact of this world that we live in.
Thanks a lot. Yeah. Just shot my knife.
But don't you think that do you disagree with me here?
No, I don't disagree.
You go back to J. Edgar Hoover. He had files on everybody, and that is literally the precursor.
Hey, he was from Wisconsin. You watch the way you talk about him.
That's all you need to know, folks. But it's this thing where a lot of people are saying, their issue is not with Snowden releasing the fact that they're collecting information. It's the manner in which the information is being collected, because that somehow alerts our enemies. Oh,
Snowden.
We should stop communicating on email, and we should stop that somehow we've let the bad guys know this is how we're looking for you. And to me, listen, I'm going to tell you, if the government would come out and tell me the deal with Area 51 and who killed Kennedy, I would be fine with everything. I'd be fine with
the Area 51 thing is actually pretty interesting.
No, listen,
it is. It is because
he thinks that pro wrestling is true. So I don't know.
Can I just say one real quick thing? I've had people tell me that this Snowden guy looks a lot like me, and when they see him on TV, they think, well, there's Jeremy Gertis. But I honestly think he looks more like TG.
Nobody can ever see me because this is the back of my head. So it is an unfounded thought, and unless I turn around and face that camera, you'll never know.
And actually, what we want to release on the Technology Show is Snowden is a combination of Jeremy and Matthew.
Yeah.
No.
All right. So this article here about from Megan, I hope I pronounce her last name correctly, Lazlaki. She is saying that monogamy is.
Preach it, Megan.
Monogamy is not natural.
Not natural.
And if we could, in our culture, if we can just get over that. So here's my simple question: what does the culture look like
when we do?
When faithfulness is out the door? Let's not even worry about that. What does that look like?
So is she married?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah.
It's interesting. I just read an article yesterday on The Art of Manliness, which is a website
great website. Yeah.
check out every now and then. But they had an article yesterday about how a lack of faithfulness, and the guys that want one night stand after one night stand, it tends to build a chemical reaction in their brain, so that their brain literally gets hardwired to not want commitment.
Yeah.
And so they will seek to be as unfaithful as they possibly can. So she's probably right. For many people, it is unnatural. But does that mean that it's right?
Yeah, right. No, it's a great point. Yeah. And because of their practice, they have become that way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She says, and this is a quote from the article, because fidelity is considered the barometer of a successful marriage, this means that a person is theoretically expected to have one sexual partner for about 50 years. This seems like a lot to expect of any human being, even the most honorable, ethical, and moral. So it's just too hard. Like, that is her argument. The argument is it's just too hard. So you can't learn to read. Forget about it. You don't even.
You can't learn the Spanish.
You can't learn the Spanish.
Forget about it.
No habla español. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, to me, the whole premise of her argument is that if it's too hard, don't try to work at it. This article made me sick to my stomach, so I'll just
go ahead, Jeremy.
And in the process of arguing that, she's also totally disregarding the studies that show that people who are faithful and monogamous tend to be more satisfied in their relationships and in their life. So, hey, it's hard, but we'll just throw out all the rest of that.
Well, and I remember, I'm old enough to remember that in the 1980s, there was Red Book, the magazine, put out this survey, and it was just on the sex life of women, and there were over 500,000 women that responded. So it wasn't a scientific study. Things weren't checked in there. Things weren't controlled. But it became big news in the nation because you had so many women that responded to it. And the biggest, the biggest headline out of that was that the most satisfied women in their sexuality were evangelical women, where this whole thing of fidelity was preached and practiced. All right, let's change gears because I want to go to my new phone here, Jeremy. I'm thinking right here, this is going to be nice.
Yeah, if you're going to cheat on your wife, you need a big tablet to call.
A head as big as mine. This really isn't that, it doesn't look too bad, does it?
It does.
Well, if you're going to have a 7, you just well go with a 10. So I'll
Yeah, go put it back up there, Jeremy. Come on, I didn't get a good look there. Yeah, see that looks totally natural. I mean,
do you remember the thing that the guy invented? I don't remember the name of it, but it's in the last 2 years. It's the thing that it's like a suction cup that puts your phone to your ear and goes over your head.
No,
I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't.
So now
I don't think this is all that bad. Seriously.
Hold on. So let's stop teasing here and just ask for a minute. If you could make a phone call on that, would you?
I would. So as much as I laugh about this, to me that is not all that uncomfortable. I'm just gonna be totally honest with you.
It's not uncomfortable when you're sitting at a desk in your house.
Okay.
But let's say you're driving in the car. Where are you going to put that thing?
You're not. You're not supposed to be. You're not supposed to have your hands on it.
I'll use my hands-free device in the car, Jeremy.
No, seriously,
like now,
I'm not even talking about talking on the thing. I'm talking about you're carrying it while you're driving in the car. This is your phone.
You're not carrying, Jeremy. The law enforcement are going to be knocking down your door here soon,
and they know. Through the NSA, they know who's got the phone in the car.
You are Snowden. You carry a phone in your car. We
reported you.
I'm gonna be really honest with you guys. So I'm being serious. I wouldn't want it as a primary phone, but if I could at times funnel my phone calls to this, that would not be.
You can't.
Absolutely. Yeah. If there were times like over pairing my cell phone that's in my pocket, and I could when my phone rings, it actually popped up a little message on whatever I was using saying, "Hey, would you like to take this call here?" Absolutely, I would do that.
I would. I mean, I'm serious.
I wouldn't want to walk around. I mean, because I have major shoulder issues, so I wouldn't want to have to carry that.
You're afraid you won't look as cool as me.
See, man. I don't have a Mac. I don't have.
Isn't it interesting? I can remember coming out about my last year in college, it was about 2005, to see somebody had this telephone that was really cool. I believe LG made it. It looked like this little itty bitty candy bar.
Yes.
And it was a cell phone. All right, so it's just a cell phone.
Seriously, it was literally called the chocolate.
That's what it was.
Yes. I remember that.
Just tiny little thing. And for a while, that was just the deal. Like, let's get it as small as possible.
Grab that cell phone there, Heath.
And then it's as big as possible.
Yes.
What happened?
And then now it's turning it around and make it as big as we can.
There we go. Now look at that. Now look at Heath and look at this.
This thing weighs at least 10
Yeah,
pounds.
and there was a time we thought that was cool. So you think that this is uncool? It's going.
Hello.
That's a direct line to the NSA right there.
Look at. Here, hand that to me. Look at that. Is even good. No, just this part. Look at this. I mean, look at this here. In terms of this is
now,
actually longer.
Are they going to start making tablets that conform to your head that are kind of curved?
Sure. We're working on flexible displays right now.
So
essentially, it's going to be like Iron Man's suit, where you just have a giant heads-up display. You're going to put on a helmet, and you'll have a HUD that goes all the way around, which you're seeing. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right.
Listen, Jarvis.
Google Glass.
Jarvis is
Google
amazing.
Glass. There you go.
Hello, sir.
Yeah. All right, real quick.
You guys have your test versions, right?
What's that?
You guys got your beta versions of the Glass, right?
No.
I wish.
No. Did you get yours?
Yeah, no.
Yeah. Yeah. No. All right. Real fast. I don't have a lot of time here. Just this last story. This boy, born a boy at 4 years old, a psychologist said that he was transgender, and so he's been living as a little girl ever since. And at school they would let him.
Now he's 6.
He's 6 now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm sorry. He was, but the psychologist diagnosed him at 4.
Yeah.
At school, they would let him use a private bathroom. Basically, they went to the courts to say no, he should have the right, even though he has a boy's anatomy, he has the right to use a girl's bathroom, and they won. They won, and so now he can.
Couple of questions here, all through the story. Coy is referred to as she and her. I wonder why.
That's politically correct.
Right. What I'm wondering is why they haven't changed his name to a more feminine name. If that's like a legal process, a legal reason, I don't know. I just
okay. We could.
I would
why
say
should we?
Gender neutral.
Well, let's really just dig down into the mud on the issue of the name. Let's actually. How about we actually talk about the greater issue here, right?
Right.
I mean,
right. Well, here's the deal. This is what I said in the pre-show.
Yeah, I think it's a sad ruling. If I have girls that are going to that school, that is a huge concern to me. Jeremy, last week you and I talked in the pre-show that what if, so a psychologist diagnosed him at 4, what if he hits puberty and he says, you know what?
Right.
I'm a man.
And
that's
right. Gender identity is not solidified at 4, I don't think. I mean,
right.
I don't have any studies to back me up here, but the reality is 4-year-old boys don't fully understand the difference between boys and girls.
Yeah.
And same with 4-year-old girls.
It also raises the other question, what's the vetting process? So for the next boy who feels like he's a girl, does he have to go to the same psychologist?
Right.
What's the checklist for this?
Yeah. And here's
exactly.
Here's my thing, okay? I have 9-year-old daughters, and to me, as soon as male anatomy enters a girl's restroom, it ceases to be a girl's restroom, in my opinion. Same thing.
And vice versa.
Right. Right. Same thing in the boys' bathroom. If female anatomy enters that bathroom, it ceases. The whole point of girls' and boys' restrooms is that it doesn't matter what your. I mean, oh my god.
Well, hey, if what's her name from 2 stories ago,
heading, though.
we just all share the same bathrooms and we don't care anymore.
You said what, Jeremy?
I think that's exactly where we're heading.
I do too. And it's this thing of the lines are being obliterated. And so there is kind of a tie-in to the earlier story.
I wasn't kidding. I'm serious.
No, you're right. You're right. And okay, so if we obliterate the lines, then are we? Is it just we all just going to kind of live? I mean, the Book of Judges talks about every person did what was right in their own eyes.
I can promise you, if you take this out to its fullest extent and you blur the lines, everybody gets uncomfortable because there's going to be the person that you really don't want to be in the same bathroom as you.
Yeah.
I mean, there's going to be in the ladies' bathroom that guy who's like, "Woo, yay, my day has finally come. This is wonderful."
And you're not going to care what the psychologist
says. You're going
to
say, "I would actually kind of not like him to be here right now."
Right. And that to me is is where does this?
So with this statement, you know that the bathroom changes once it.
In
What
my
about those like 2 or 3 times when I've accidentally walked into the wrong bathroom?
Yeah.
Anybody ever been guilty of that?
Oh man,
I have turned
that's embarrassing.
I've turned a few female restrooms into men's restrooms before. I'll admit it.
All right, listen, we're gonna run a little long here. I'm gonna quickly cut this off. I want to talk about a guest we're gonna have on next month, and just do about a 2.5 minute promo video here. We're really looking forward to this guest. Let's just go ahead and go to it, and we'll give you her name and everything afterwards.
I was researching for a school project and found a video website that had a bunch of scientific videos on it. And one of the videos was a porn video, and it didn't have any labels. It didn't have any warnings. You just clicked on it and it just played a porn video. It was hardcore pornography, and so it was way too strong. It was scary, but it still had opened up that door where, okay, this is the world that I haven't explored yet. This is what I was looking for. So I began to sex chat in chat rooms, and it filled that need of having that connection and having men desire me and having men pursue me and feeling like I belonged and I was acceptable and I was beautiful. And pornography kind of became almost research to be able to do the sex chatting better. They would ask me to do things I didn't understand, so I would go and look it up and figure out what it was. Eventually, it just transitioned to I didn't need the emotional connection anymore. I didn't care, and I just went right into pornography and never went back to sex chatting again. I think the biggest thing looking back is I lost my joy. When I was little, I can remember just being so full of energy and life and creativity, and I wanted to go outside and I would sing because I was happy. And when I got exposed to it, when I started diving into it, I lost that, and I lost the connection that I wanted to have with real people. I wanted to have that connection with these people online because for some reason it felt more genuine with them than it did for my own family and my own friends. It felt more real with them. So I started to fall away from my family, and I didn't want them to talk to me. I lost all of my joy and my love for life, and my world started to kind of revolve around feeling better about myself. Because when I was done with pornography, I'd feel horrible about myself, and I'd go back to it again to feel better about myself again. I didn't have real people, and I didn't have friends all through growing up because I was so afraid of people getting close to me. And so I would react to people in anger a lot just to keep them back, and I became this very angry person just to keep people away because I didn't want them to know what was going on. And I kept thinking, if you really knew what I was doing, you wouldn't love me. I completely changed, but I could play the face too, and I knew how to give people what they wanted. So at church, I was the perfect Christian girl. At school, I was the teacher's pet and the straight A student. I knew how to play all the different parts in my life, but none of them were real. My genuineness was gone.
If you saw our episode where we had Luke Gilkerson on from Covenant Eyes, he recommended that we get in contact with Jessica Harris, and she has graciously consented to come on the show. She'll be with us August the 13th. Now, before then, on August the 16th, Dr. Ken Skank will be with us. On July the 30th, Devin Smith, he's the director of online learning at Oklahoma Wesleyan University. But next week, we will not be here because guess what? The Techology Show is going to kids camp.
We may never be the same.
Well, will.
We need to take the camera and the Techology Show mic and do some do some man on the street interviews.
Man on the street interviews at kids camp. That'd be awesome. Yeah.
I just want to say I want the world to know, Tabor 10. We are going to win the talent show. I'm throwing the gauntlet out there. We're going to win. That's all I'm going to say.
All right. Yeah, that's
Tony?
all you need to say.
Yeah,
I'm not saying anything.
I will have the cleanest cabinet.
That's right. We will be spotless.
My boys will be miserable at how clean they have to make my cabin.
That's right. All their dirty clothes will be picked up and put where they're supposed to go. All right. Hey, Jeremy, thanks for being such a great sport last week when things didn't work out. Where can our listeners find you?
You can find me on Facebook or on Twitter, Jay Gertis on Twitter. I have a blog, jgertis.wordpress.com.
All right. Heath.
HeathMulligan.com, and from there you can find me all around the world.
All right, Brother TG.
You can find me working feverishly to post-produce this show here in Pickens, South Carolina, or at MatthewTG.com.
I'm at KC64. That's Facebook and Twitter. If you want to do further research on any of the stories that we covered today, you can find all of the links at our website, thetechnologyshow.com. If you want to contact us, send your emails to thetechnologyshow@gmail.com. That's what Paul Tillman did.
He's also done this before,
Yeah.
Paul has.
Call us at 3049 Theology.
Yes, sir.
Leave us a message, and we may even play those comments on the air. As always, thanks for joining us. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Adios.